mentioned, this is, he's the engineer overseeing this project. He's come here to talk to us about the golf course project and the funding for the project. I understand the funding is good. What I heard.
Well, we have to vote on it.
Yeah, we have to vote on it, but we want to talk about it. We want to discuss it with one or?
Yeah, we were given the explanation on it.
Wayne, you have the floor. Need anything, let me know.
No, I'm good. I'm gonna probably just kind of walk through the information for you here, if that's okay with everybody. It's a little hard. I do have the drawings. We haven't touched those for a while. If anybody's got any specific questions, probably a little bit hard to read here. It's a little dark. So this is the vote for the Special Services District. And this is the required public informational meeting here. Of course, this is February 5th, 6 p.m. I am going to read the article very quickly here for this particular vote. Article 1, shall general obligation bonds or notes of the town of Richford in an amount not to exceed $1,100,000, subject to available grants and aid, be issued to finance the cost of improving the water system. The vote is by Australian ballot here. It's at the Richford Town Hall, 94 Main Street. It's on Tuesday, February 13th, 2024 from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Start with a little bit about what's included in the water system improvements. Again, this is a little bit hard to read. This is Province Street down to the left. So it's basically a new 8-inch water line is going to go easterly up Golf Course Road to about where the existing cemetery is. It's 1,100 feet. Let me put this here. It is in the middle of the road. We do need to keep that existing water line in service while we're installing the new water line. It's going to end right here in the area of the cemetery, just before the pavilion on the left-hand side. So you'll have 8-inch up to that point. You'll have new fire hydrants. All the services will be replaced up to the edge of the right-of-way to match the existing size. It includes pavement restoration. Then we have a small booster pump station. I'll talk a little bit about why the project is required here. We do need to boost the pressures up for the area uphill. The grade jumps up pretty quickly up there. So we're gonna have 2 pumps, electrical in a small building. And then out of that, we're gonna have a 4-inch water line just for domestic service from there up about another 1,200 feet, about to the high point. I think it ends at about, the house numbers I think are about 91, 94. Yeah, let's see, yeah, house 94. So we get fire protection, new hydrants up to about the cemetery. From there, 4-inch just for domestic only. Again, new services within the town right away. Going to reconnect everybody up to that. Of course, includes any kind of pavement restoration. This goes back to quite a few years. We did back in 2019, we did a asset management plan for the entire water system. That was funded to the state of Vermont through the drinking water program. 100% subsidy for the town. This was identified as an area of concern because of the age of the water line and also was undersized. Then in 2020, the state came through and did an inspection, issued a sanitary survey report, had a couple things on that list, and this was one of them. And basically for this area, you have to have a minimum of 20 PSI of pressure under all flow conditions for both domestic and fire. Or if it's just domestic, you have to have a minimum of 35 PSI. It doesn't meet those requirements. They had requested a plan and schedule be put together, and that was submitted by September 2020. The major issue is you have a 4-inch water line up Golf Course Road, fairly old, it's cast iron. Today you need a minimum of 8-inch, an 8-inch pipe to provide fire flow protection, so that's the minimum requirement. That water line, of course, probably you're also having system leaks. There's probably been some repairs required to that too. It is an old original cast iron line. And then booster pump station about halfway up here. And what we're going to do with that is increase the pressures for the upper portion. So we have to have a minimum of 20 psi where the fire protection is up to the cemetery, and then the rest of the way where it's going to go through the booster pump station. So they have to have a minimum of 35 psi. Well, we want to get the pressures up in that 50 to 70 psi range right now. A little bit about the funding and the bond amount. We updated the construction costs. There's been some different iterations. At one point, the town was just going to do to the cemetery, to the booster pump station. Now the whole project includes also the 4-inch water line from there up. We updated the construction costs for next year when that's slated to go to construction. Total project cost is $1,100,000, and that's also the recommended bond amount. That includes construction costs for next year. 15% construction contingency includes engineering and other costs, legal, permit fees, administration. Because of the bond vote, in timing some of the funding, it was just getting probably too late to put this out to bid this year, even if the bond vote passes. Don't generally see good pricing if you put something out in the spring. So the plan is to get the easements finished up, get all the permits in place, have it ready to go to bid towards the end of this year, so the contractor can start, first thing next spring. Available funding sources, there is the state has what they call an intended use plan for the drinking water program. And the town, that project, or this project is on that list now in the fundable range. We did have to submit another application to reapply for that. That went in about the end of January. And the plan is that hopefully this project stays back on the list. And they have readiness to proceed criteria. So right now, because you're not quite there with a positive bond, you would drop Bob, but the plan is to get you back on the list for the next state fiscal year, which starts July 1st. Great funding package. Because of the town water rates and your median household income and some other disadvantage criteria, you qualify for a 50% subsidy, so that's a 50% grant. The remainder is loan through the drinking water program, and that's also so it's 0% interest at 4 years, so that's a really great funding package. The projected impact on the water rates, so the good news is, so we're in 24, going to construction in 2025. The first loan payment isn't due until a year after the completion of construction, so the earliest that first loan payment is due is about the end of 2026, early 2027. That loan payment would be about $13,750, again 0% for 40 years. The projected increase in the water rates at that time would be about $18.50 for a typical residential customer. Last thing on here is what happens if the bond vote doesn't pass. You could go back to a second vote, November if you wanted to, or next March. Ultimately, you just wouldn't meet the readiness per site criteria. So the project could fall on the funding list, and then you wouldn't necessarily be eligible for the subsidy. The challenge here is, at least probably as a minimum, the project needs to be done up to the cemetery with the 8-inch water line and the booster pump station to get the pressures high enough for the upper portion. So even if this doesn't pass, at some point you're gonna have to find a funding source. And that's probably gonna be more costly to the water customers because it's gonna be a loan at a higher interest rate, may delay construction, so if anything, it's gonna cost your water customers more. The thing that I'm not probably versed about is, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about the 2 votes. So people may have questions. This one is just for the special services district, and then the entire town is going to be voting at town meeting day on the project. So there'll be a separate public information meeting for that. So I don't know if anybody wants to explain that a little bit more, just so people understand maybe who can vote for the special services district and who can't.
So it will be the registered voters that are on the water system.
for this next vote on Tuesday, and the same article is being placed on the town meeting ballot for March 5th.
And the entire town can vote on
And the
that.
entire town can vote on it.
But one doesn't outweigh the other.
It's set up in our charter when the village and the town merged, that this is the way we would handle situations like this, so.
So if the special service vote goes through, but the town vote doesn't go through, does one trump the other?
So we'll have to cross that
I
bridge.
don't know, that's a question for your turn.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Right,
Correct.
And also, I guess, maybe to clarify, so I understand that people can vote twice. If you're a water system customer, you can vote for this election for the special services district, and then vote again at town meeting day. Okay. And maybe just to clarify again, as part of that, so the cost increase for this project, even though the entire town gets to ultimately vote, it's just on the water customers, okay?
Yeah, right.
You mentioned the easements.
Yeah,
I didn't think we needed an easement because we're putting a pump station on land the town already owns.
probably not. I know we haven't touched that too much, Alan, but I know there was some discussion back in a while. It's something we just need to double check about the property, the ownership of that. We may have a couple areas where we may need some temporary construction easements, but that's something we'll have to work on here after, after the bond vote.
So the easements wouldn't be for the pump station.
I don't think so. I know we haven't met and talked about that, and I know there was some clarity as far as the ownership of that area, whether there was one needed or not, but that's something we'll have to work through.
Just out of curiosity, you said have to maintain water service during construction. Would the 4-inch pipe be taken out at the end of it, or just be left?
Generally, we're gonna just leave those pipes in the ground. It's just easier. So what we'll do is we'll build a new 8-inch water line up to the booster pump station, leave the other line in service, get the new one tested, disinfected, and then go back and start connecting people back up to the new line. The original 4-inch line will just stay in the ground. We'll leave it disconnected, cap it. Kind of same thing from the booster pump station up. The old line will just stay in the ground, and we'll connect people up to the new line once it's installed and disinfected.
Okay.
Sometimes the only reason I mention that is we do get into some cases where some of these places, there's a lot of stuff in the ground, and certain situations you have to kind of put the new where they just in water line. Sometimes we have to run temporary water. We don't have to do that here because we've got space to work with, but it has to maybe go in the same trench, so you have to run temporary water over ground, just to make sure you maintain, water service during construction. It would be a very short kind of shutdown for individual customers with, the cuttings like down on Province Street when they would start. And, obviously when they're taking and reconnecting somebody from the old to the new line, but that would be all communicated with each of the property owners just to kind of minimize those disruptions.
When it comes time to put this out for bid, is that something your office does, or is that something the town does?
No, so this is a little bit different. I mean, this is more of what we do. Most of the projects we do are all state federally funded, a bunch of different funding sources. This is a state funded drinking water project. So they require that, we do all the engineering, we get all the permits, we basically put the contract documents together. So this is ready for bid. One of the newer things here is the Build America, Buy America. We call them the cross cutters. So when we're using the state funding, there's things like disadvantaged business enterprise, there's data stake and wage rates. There used to be American Iron and Steel, now it's this. So have to make sure the project funding and the contract and everybody's complying with those program requirements. And then beyond that, because it's state funded, we also have to provide the bid and construction phase services. So we put it out to bid, it's gotta be public advertised. The state construction people monitor that, recommendation for award, help with getting all the contracts documents together. We also help with the administration, change orders, pay requests, and we wanna make sure the contract, everybody's compliant with all those federal cutters, cross cutters and requirements.
whoever the contractor's gonna be, do you always go with whoever bids the lowest?
We actually don't make that decision. You have to open the bids, and as long as they're bonded, or unless there's some kind of error, mistake in the bid, you do have to recommend award to the lowest bidder. That's the way the state requires it. They would only be rejected if there was a math error in the bid, or they didn't provide some kind of document to recognize that. But that's the way their program requirements are set up. So, but the contractor's got to be bonded, performance payment bonds. So we would recommend the award. The state has to concur with that, and also they would come back to the board at that point in time. You guys ultimately have to agree to that too. So.
And is it safe to assume that the company that's chosen is going to understand the state has requirements for types of pipes you can use for water lines?
Yep, that's all in the part of the design documents and part of the permits.
Specs and what's required.
Yep.
So any other questions?
Okay, so you're doing the 8-inch up to where you're gonna have the booster pumps. And is it because you have those booster pumps there that you can get away with the 4-inch the rest of the way up? Is it saying that the 4-inch on the golf course road is original and undersized, is the minimum 8-inch? So I'm trying to figure out why we're going from, it sounds like we're going from 8-inch part of the way, and then we're going 4-inch the rest of the way up.
Yep.
And because we have the pressure boosters,
Yep.
that allows us to go back down to the 4-inch. Okay.
It's actually more to do with,
Fire.
fire flow protection. So the thing that's gonna happen here is there won't be fire flow protection from the booster pump station in that direction.
Okay.
And if it could be done, but what would have to happen is this booster pump station would have to be a lot larger, and we would have to put different size pumps in there, because then you would need to go with 8-inch the rest of the way up over the hill, and you need different size pumps to meet the domestic normal day-to-day demand, and then also the 500 gallons per minute on the fire protection. So it's not that it can be done, it's just an additional cost, and really probably not necessary. They do have fire protection, right up to here with the hydrants. Just a matter of, with the way the booster pump station is designed, you can't get the 500 gallons per minute that you would need for fire protection.
So you have a hydrant real close to that
Yes.
so that they could,
Yep, absolutely. And I think there's an existing hydrant up here, you just took a ride out there, that's up here a little ways, that's gonna have to be removed, because you obviously can't, get fire protection.
Going back to the easements again, if we do need easements, is that something your office does?
Yeah, yep. So once, again, this has been sitting for a little while, kind of waiting to see where things are gonna go on the funding. But once the design's done, we show any of the easements that are needed on our drawings, Alan, we'll do a figure, have to coordinate with your town attorney. It could be temporary, permanent, whatever. We're trying to stay in the right of way as much as we can here, but those will be identified, coordinated, yeah.
So it would be possible, maybe if we had to get a temporary easement, because we're dealing with another project now where we had issues with it, and one of the things we couldn't get easements for it. And this being, kind of a necessary project, I would hope we'd be able to get easements for it.
No. You'll see what happens, and then if you absolutely can't, then we'll see if we can find another way around it. But the objective here is to try to stay within the town, all the right of ways as much as we can. We don't typically get easements where you're reconnecting, because that's really we kind of turned that into maintenance. So, like for example, I'm just gonna pick this house 34, you're digging right over the edge of the right of way, but you need to pick them up there, and you're gonna put a new curb stop because you want the ability to be able to turn them off and on and off in the future if you need it. So, we will be pushing right up to the edge of the right of way, but you don't generally get an easement for some temporary for that. If I'm a homeowner, I want a new service us at least up to the edge of the right of way, because, then, you know, it's new, I don't have to worry about it, so.
And since it's a new line, I assume curb stops and everything will be new.
Yes, yep, absolutely, everything, starting down here at the intersection with Providence Street, as far as the water line, the 8-inch is all new. We got brand new services for each home to the edge of the right of way with curb stops, corporations, so everything in the public right of way will be, you know, new. Yep.
Anyone have anything else? Alan, you've been pretty good with the questions. No, it was good, Okay. Mr. Miller, do you have anything? Oh, Tom, you have?
Years ago, when you first started talking about this, I remember hearing at some meeting, you were talking about, one select board person that's no longer here was talking about using the cemetery vault to put the pump stations in. Is that still in plan, or is that not?
I don't think that was ever an option or discussed. I think the only thing is we were trying to use the property adjacent, you know, on that piece of property, it's this way of the wall a little bit. But no, my involvement, I've been involved in this since the beginning, and no, there was never discussion from our end or anybody in the meetings I was at about trying to use our existing structure.
Okay. Is that it? Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming up here, giving the presentation.
Do you want me to leave this here for any reason?
Sure,
can do that.
if you're intending to come back for March meeting,
Do I have to?
you did a great job.
Just information.
No, just.
Thank you.